Hello, loyal pixel fighters. This is Marie. And like Amy, I miss our Pete for a Day critiques. So I thought rather than try and write something on everybody's timeline, I would cheat a little bit and do a critique for everyone all at once in this video. So here we go. And these are in no particular order other than generally we're going to start with the latest and end up with the earliest, but basically they're the order I use to make the voting grid to make everything fit and look pretty. So here we go. We have Sherry here, who has put together a very nice composition, photographically speaking and Photoshop speaking. She has darkened the edges with a slight vignette to bring our attention to her subjects. So because she's darkened that, now we know the little girl and the chicken are the subjects. And she's got all these leading lines. We've got these corn stalks leading from the side to the little girl and the chicken. We've got these corn stalks here leaning over, and the corn stalks make a nice triangular frame with this leaf litter on the bottom. So she has not only framed her subject with darkness, or emphasized it with light if you will, but she's also used the lines of the cornfield she's in to also use it as kind of a natural frame to draw attention. She's also played well with what we call the rule of thirds in photography. If we put a tic-tac-toe grid on this, and I know this grid doesn't exactly match because it's made for another image, but you could see if we were to transform that grid just a little bit. Let's go back up and do that and move this grid in sideways. See, it makes a tic-tac-toe grid on her image. And she's got and they say the PowerPoints are these intersections where the grid lines come together. So she's got her chicken right at the grid line. It would have been a teeny bit, perhaps a teeny bit more gritty if she'd put the eye of the chicken on the line. But she has her little girl framed along the right line and the top line, and her head is nearly at the intersection. So she has used that rule of thirds really nicely in her image. Now, you know, I can't leave anything alone. I gotta touch everything if I'm looking at it. And I thought, compared to the girl and to this corn over here, the chicken was a little dark. I would prefer to see this corn just a teeny bit darker. We could still see this nice triangular frame. But I thought, well, what would happen if we would make the chicken a little lighter? So I put together a levels adjustment. Now I'm emphasizing this. It probably should be a little bit less. Maybe I've pushed it a little too far. Maybe I should just bring her down to about there. And that works pretty well. And I thought, well, the comb in his eyes look a little bit dark. So I said, well, what would happen if I'd lighten the comb a little more? Well, that's what would happen. But the thing that this chicken really needs, because it's the only eye in the photo, is catch light. Now you see that doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And let me zoom in just a little bit so you could see it a little bit better. But look how much more alive that little chicken looks with just that catch light. Now if I wanted, I could lower the opacity of that just a little bit. And basically what it is a soft white brush painted at one corner of the eye so I could see where the light was coming from. So here is Vicky's version, and here is the other version. Sorry for that interruption. My phone never rings except when I'm trying to make a recording. So anyways, here we have, down here's Vicky's original. And even just that little eye catch really makes a significant difference. Subtle, but nevertheless it's there. It's very well done. The colors work well together. Like I say, it's well composed. It's well put together. You can't tell that these weren't in the original pictures. The shadows and the lighting appear to be very well done. And I just love that she's put the feet in this grass and weed litter here, because those feet were just horrid to try and get away from their background. Okay, so next we have Vicky, and Vicky's also done a delightful fairy tale image of the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Now she has, I thought it was Henny Penny. She says it's Chicken Lickin. I didn't look it up, and it's Vicky's picture. So this is Chicken Lickin, running around trying to determine what's going on. Now this one is not composed according to the rule of thirds, but it is framed with the bushes on the right and the tree on the left. It too has a vignette to direct our pictures, direct our eyes to the subject of the pictures, which is the chicken. And one of the things that was difficult to work with this chicken was that it was backlit, terribly backlit, and we have all this light rim here on the edges. Well, Vicky took that into account, so she put her light behind the chicken. So the light, this chicken is backlit. She did put a catch light in it when she put that hat on its head, and I like the way the hat matches up to the comb. You can see the shadows on the backs of the legs, also showing the backlighting, the edge of the tree, the edge of the bush. This, I don't know if it's an egg or a mushroom, but it also shows the backlighting. This shadow here on the back of the chicken, I think is a bit dark, or maybe a little harsh for what would actually be here. Maybe it's too abrupt, might be another word. I don't know just exactly how to fix that. I would try lightening it if it were on its own layer. I would also try and maybe make an easier gradation here. But that's the only thing that doesn't quite fit. I mean, and these are minor little details. These are not major things. These are just tiny little things. But it's often the light and the shadow that will give our composites away. We could also use just a little bit of rim light right here on this far wing, similar to what we see across her back and along her chest, to have that little rim light. We could cheat with that by using an inner glow to get that rim light back there on her. So well done, Vicky. You and Sherry make it hard. Actually, most of these were pretty good. It would be very difficult to pick a favorite, and I'm still not sure who I'm going to vote for. So let's look at Helens. This was just laugh out loud funny. If I hadn't known better, Helen, I'd have thought Retired Guy had done this one. It's just so cute. The chicken with his little gun belt and shooting with his friend the farmer, I'm going to say. Now, I've got to zoom in on this. I looked at this a couple of times early. This almost looks like an ear. It really isn't. It's part of the chicken, but it almost looks like you've smacked an ear right on there in the middle. And I wonder where the chicken's ear protection is. Would that improve the image or would it take away from it? Don't know, didn't try, to be honest. What I was thinking for on this one was I looked again at the rule of thirds. And the it would be better if maybe his head were in the middle of the intersection and the chicken's head were at the middle of an intersection, perhaps. And we could change that by cropping. The nice part about this is you have left room for the farmer and the chicken to look and a place for the bullet to go. Do we need quite so much space? Maybe not. Do we need quite so much detail in the background? Maybe not. I don't know if you tried at all to blur this, just this back half, but that might be an interesting thing to try. One thing I did try to do though was crop it a little bit, and I did crop it and I showed it with that rule of thirds, and now I've got the guy's head and the chicken head pretty much on the grid lines, but it really doesn't leave them a lot of room to shoot or to look into. And as I ran across back and forth between them, I think I like the uncropped a little better now that I've seen it cropped. Sometimes that's all I do. I'll try a crop just to see what it looks like. And if I don't like it, I toss it out. So another very difficult one. This too has a little bit of a vignette. We might be able to put a little bit more of a vignette on, and it's already a smart object, so I'm going to filter camera raw filter, and I'm going to go to effects and put a little more vignette on it, and I like color priority. That's just my preference. And put just a little bit more of a vignette, feather it a little bit, round it off a little bit, and see if that helps it or not. So let's undo, let's redo. Not a tremendous difference there. Just had to try it. I can't leave my hands off anything. Alright, let's look at our new member, George's contribution. He went with primarily processing, although he did go ahead and put a picture frame around the image and hang it on a wall. So for somebody new to composition, that's not bad. We might have wanted a bit more matting on here, and to my eyes, and remember, all of these comments are just one person's opinion, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. We might have wanted that matte to be even along the sides. See, the sides are a little bit wider than the top. I might have tried to have them both the same width, and I think it would look a little bit better. I might also put in a little wider frame, or maybe a wood color or a gold color rather than a black, but that's my personal preference. The edges of both the mat and the frame are beveled nicely. There's a shadow underneath the frame so we can see it on the wall. We can see the light is coming from mostly the top, because this is where we have our highlight showing, and then we have our shadow along the bottom. I did play around with this one just a little bit, and the first thing that I did was I took it back to camera raw and reprocessed. I thought it looked a little dark, and if we look at the camera raw filter, you can see I have opened up the shadows, brought down the highlights to try and get rid of some of the blown out areas here, and I added just a tad more exposure. And that looked, I like that better. It's brighter, it's to me. And remember, I keep my monitor very dark, so this may look overdone on your monitor. But on my monitor, if on my monitor, this would print dark, just like you see it here. If I wanted it brighter, I'd have to have it brighter. And I keep my monitor dark partly because to offset the light in my room, and partly so my printed images will look like what I see on my screen. You might consider lowering the light in your room where your computer and monitor are, because sometimes many of you have really dark images. Pull the curtains, pull the drapes, because if you keep your monitor too bright so you can see all these things and they look bright, and then you print them and they look muddy, that's what's going on. You've got too much light coming from behind your image, and when you print, the light is coming from in front of your image, and it doesn't look so good. So that's my little lecture today. I also thought maybe the inner frame, or the frame inside of the frame, could use a little shadow. So I threw a little shadow in there, because there is shadowing on the wall. There should be shadowing from that frame. I also put on a shadow from the mat, just a little one. Very subtle. You may not be able to see the difference once the recording is made, but I think it helps add to the realistic of it. And then I got to looking at it photographically. Well, the chicken shadow down here does not bother me. This shadow of whatever this is does. I think it takes away from the impact that chicken is making. So what I did was I actually did three things. I took this back into Camera Raw, and I used a targeted adjustment brush to lighten this shadow. And I also blurred the edges a little bit with, here it is with just the Camera Raw adjustment. See, whoops, here's the Camera Raw adjustment. I also put a little vignette around it in Camera Raw. And then I went to the blur gallery and blurred this. Now, because it's a smart object, I can turn these on and off, and you all can decide what you like best. Here's where I would have gone with this one, and this is George's original. Okay, now it's time for good old retired guy, and another laugh out loud funny image. I don't know where this man gets his ideas, or how he could have maintained a straight face guarding government officials, as funny as some of them are unintentionally. I just cannot imagine this man being serious enough to keep a straight face watching some of the faux pas that our government officials can be up to. More power to you, Jim. I love your sense of humor. Here's the chicken's poor brother. And I wonder who ate it. What did the chicken eat his brother, or was that whoever used the typewriter last? But however it is, the chicken's apparently been at this a while, packing away one letter at a time, trying to write to Colonel Sanders protesting. What's going on? It's in your face. There is no doubt what the subject is, what the story is, by looking at this picture. The edges are dark. Everything is well done. I love the chicken shadow, and I'm especially impressed with the job that Jim did masking these feet. I've been playing with this. I didn't get mine done, but I know how hard that was. He's also got a pretty nice shadow here underneath the typewriter, which matches the shadow under the pop can. The only thing that isn't quite right is, and shadow-wise, is the box. It appears to be floating just a teeny bit. Less softness on that shadow would probably help that a little bit less of a distance on that would probably settle these down into the table. But your shadows are getting really good, Jim. I noticed it on the one that you posted for this week. You're getting really good at shadows. But I can't leave things alone, you know that. So I did a little playing around with a camera raw filter. And basically what I did was, here, let's look at it. I put the vignette on it. And I also opened up the shadows just a little bit. Now here, let me turn this. Mal, I'll do them separately. I opened up the shadows a little bit so we could see more of the typewriter, and it would show up a little bit. I brought down the highlights to make this rim light just a little less harsh, and I also added that little vignette in there. Right now, after you look at the vignette, it looks like the edges are lighter than the inside, and adding a vignette directs our focus a little bit towards the center. And of course I brightened the chicken just a little bit and the typewriter just a little bit to make them stand out. But good job, everyone. Okay, here we go with Russell again. And Russell, you're one of those people that have things so dark I can't see any detail much on my monitor. So the first thing I do is I add a levels adjustment layer. But this levels adjustment layer was a little bit harsh. It was not subtle enough for me. So I went ahead and took yours all as well into Camera Raw. And here, I'll turn it on. And in Camera Raw, I have used the targeted adjustment brush. Here, let me show you the targeted adjustment brush, and I'll show you the mask. Come on, show the mask. There we go. Come on, show the overlay. Oh, there. Come on. Okay, there we go. I targeted adjustment on these areas just so it would lighten up that little bit. And if I click on this and turn off the layer mask, I can change this exposure. Maybe you don't want it quite so dark, maybe you want it a little lighter. I also added a targeted adjustment here on his eye. And I think if we look over here, I've also got, yes, a little bit of a vignette here just to direct your eye to where it wants to be. So if we look at my first adjustment and my second adjustment, maybe this looks a little bit better. How does it differ? A lot. But I like to be able to see that this chicken is taking a picture of his dinosaur, and he's brought his family along on the sightseeing tour. I don't know what all this dark stuff is. The staining is on the chicken. Maybe he had to go through a mud hole to get here. And the shadows on the family are a bit dark compared to the shadows underneath the trees. So you always want to make your shadows match. So you should either darken those underneath the trees or lighten the shadows underneath the chicken. It's well composed. It would be a better rule of thirds. And it really isn't a rule, it's a heavy suggestion, and you can always break it, as you saw some of our people do today. But I would like to see, if you move the chicken closer to the dinosaur, it would be difficult for him to take a picture of it, anything but the underside of his jaw. So perhaps if we moved the scene over, if we took and only showed maybe the neck of the dinosaur and had some more scenery on the left, or behind the chicken, so he could be on a third line and the dinosaur's head could be on a third line, it would be a little better. This chicken is awfully crowded here in the corner. I'd like to see his feet, even if you had to hide them with grass. And his feathers shouldn't touch the edge of the frame. He should have some room all the way around him. Now you've left room for the dinosaur to look, and you've left room for the chicken to look. But having this so close to the edge, so close to almost entire, is a little provides tension that this image doesn't need. Now the dinosaur is so big and so much of him doesn't show. That part doesn't bother me at all. You've shown enough that this is a dinosaur. But here on the chicken, you've got almost all of it. Why don't you have all of it in there? So you could move him up just a little bit and move him over if you didn't want to move the whole scene over. So that's my thoughts on what you've done this week. Thank you all for participating. It was nice to see everybody do something. I'm sorry I didn't get mine done. My sister from Ohio came up and my Saturday was shot as far as getting anything photographically productive done. So all I really have is an idea and have a composition. So I hope you've enjoyed your Pete for a day, and I hope some of you will want to try this yourself with a video critique. And so much, we enjoy it. And anyways, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to have next week. And you have a great day.